It's time to pick a side. The Border War is on the air with BG and TanMan. All right, true believers, welcome into episode 149 of The Border War. This is BG. I'm joined in studio by the TanMan. You can follow us on Twitter at The Border War. You can follow me on Twitter at BG_Border War. And TanMan is at TanMan, Tar Heel TanMan. I messed that up.
At Tar Heel TanMan. Quit trying to sabotage my followers list.
Well, what I did the other day is I just started going down your list and clicking on all the, following all the people that are following you.
Huh.
And I finally just got tired of it.
So you're a follower poacher.
I got about 250 followers out of that. So
right on, man.
I'm up 500 now, I think. So today, for episode 149, TanMan, we are going to start talking a little basketball. We're going to talk college basketball, particularly as it pertains to North Carolina and South Carolina, both of whom are off to impressive starts. And speaking of the impressive starts, we're going to talk about the Charlotte Hornets. We're putting
the crowd is still going wild.
Putting them back in the box because I think
they're not awful to watch.
They've surprised both of us.
Listen, our level to get in the box is pretty low. Like, I feel like we got pretty low standards.
The teams are supposed to be predetermined, but we were just talking about it. To be fair, man, our numbers have been a little bit down the past 2 or 3 weeks, and we both have decided it's because all our teams suck. Like, nobody who wants to talk about the Redskins and Gamecocks every week. I don't,
or the Cowboys for that matter.
Yeah. All right. So, I don't know. Why don't we get started with the Tar Heels? Just from some things that you have tweeted out, you seem to be happy with a couple of your new guys.
Well, I said, there's one guy that I think we're all pretty happy with.
He's only scoring 35 a game. Is that a lot?
It's a few. And the sad thing is we're probably going to need him to score more if we really want to make a run at this thing and get seriously in it.
So you don't want to have one of those nights where he's cold?
No. When the night comes, and it will come, that Cole Anthony struggles, we're going to struggle. That's not a big secret. It's going to be tough.
Is this kid going to be gone next year?
Yes.
So y'all are on board with that too now. We're following the Mike Krzyzewski philosophy. Is that what we're doing in Chapel Hill now?
Well,
I thought you guys were better than that.
All right. Well, listen. Let's be clear about this. All right. We have already been in this. It didn't start with Cole Anthony. We've already. But
we weren't doing the show the last time it happened. So I couldn't make fun of it.
Yeah, but Roy Williams, he's made the point that all these kids, listen, he's recruited all these kids before.
Right.
They just weren't coming. Now they're starting to come. But I think that this past recruiting class, he's got 2 kids that he brought in this past year, both already having knee injuries when they come to school.
Right.
Not that they got them when they got here. They came in with them already. And I saw a lot of people the other week in one of those Facebook groups or Twitter groups or something, and they were, questioning, why do we even have these kids? Why do we have these kids? Why do we give them a scholarship? My opinion is I think Roy Williams is looking beyond the whole one and done thing, especially with those 2 kids. Because if you look at our roster right now, Friday night against UNC Wilmington, Armando Bacot, maybe another one and done kid. I don't know. We'll see. He picks up 2 fouls in like 2 minutes, winds up getting bopped in the head, going for a loose ball.
Right.
Probably a concussion. He plays a total of about 3 minutes, right? So basically North Carolina played 6 guys Friday night. Roy Williams typically plays 9, 10 guys. The depth on this team is just not there. I think bringing in these 2 kids, Jeremiah Francis and Anthony Harris, I don't think they'll play this year, but I think this was a depth-building thing for the next few years for when they start changing this college rule.
If you know that you're losing some of your main talented guys after one season, that's the way that you can, possibly stave off these years you see where some of these teams just kind of show up bereft of talent completely. Yeah. You have to kind of cycle those guys in. Nobody wins significant basketball games and titles with only one and dones.
Yeah, it's having once, and that's it.
Like last year, the reason I was so high on Kentucky was because for a change, they were bringing back some fourth and fifth year players. It didn't pan out, but
it almost did.
Yeah, sure. Because that's what you typically look to. The classic example recently, I guess, is Kentucky versus Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
3 years ago. You want some of those guys that have been in the system.
Right.
And if
you can get them some minutes, I don't want all of them.
Right.
But no, for North Carolina, 2 games into the season, a big win at home versus Notre Dame to start the year. A road trip to UNC Wilmington. I saw this note earlier today. North Carolina's got 2 true road games. UNC Wilmington, and then we go to Gonzaga in the middle of December. The other 3 ranked ACC teams don't play a true road game outside of whatever gets scheduled for them with the ACC Big Ten Challenge. So Roy Williams consistently, last year we opened up at Wofford and at Elon. Roy Williams consistently takes his team on the road. Listen, right now, 2 games in, I think we've seen some things for North Carolina that are pretty concerning. I think depth is an issue right now, especially with Brandon Robinson out. Baycott's probably not going to play Friday, but I think it's going to be a thing we battle all year long. And then a couple other things with some players. Number one, Leaky Black was the guy that we were really counting on, and I think to me he's just kind of been okay. But I'm really disappointed in Christian Keeling so far. The first 2 games, this is a kid that comes from Charleston Southern. He's a grad transfer. He's averaging like 18 points a game last year in the Big South. He's come to North Carolina. And let's see, where's the numbers? He's averaging 4.5 points a game. He turned the ball over 5 times against Notre Dame. That's a kid that just has not been able to put the ball in the basket, which is what we brought him here for. So very disappointed in Christian Keeling so far. And then the other thing that is really concerning a little bit is we have not shot the free throws very well. We went through a stretch a few years ago where we were historically bad, and we are about back at that level now, 55% through 2 games. But other than that, we look pretty good.
I mean,
other than those terrible things we mentioned, Carolina's looked pretty good.
Yeah, well, I mean, you inarguably got one of the best 3 basketball players in the country right now. And the level of production he's throwing out, you're going to have games where he doesn't show up. Man, that's about as impressive of an opening game debut as I've seen in a long time.
Oh, he was making shots from where his feet were on the tip of the North Carolina logo, state logo. In that first game against Notre Dame, he started off a little slower against UNC Wilmington. Listen, he is a dynamite basketball player, but he's still a freshman. This is still his first real road game, the first time
he will always be a freshman
in a college environment where opposing fans are going to boo him and they're going to get on him. This was one of those games I think down the road is going to pay dividends for us. I always like these road games, but down the road, this trip to where we didn't play our best against a Wilmington team that C.B. McGrath is in his second year, former Roy Williams assistant. A Wilmington team that was kind of middle of the pack last year, towards the bottom, I think, in that conference, if I'm not mistaken. They played a lot of guys, kind of really spread out his minutes. So I think McGrath's got a deep team. That team's going to be really good when they hit conference play.
What's the first game on the schedule where you kind of got it circled thinking, all right, that could be an issue? That might be, we may pick up the L there.
Well, I would say when we go to the Bahamas Thanksgiving weekend, we'll play Alabama the first game. The second game of that, we'll get either Iowa State or Michigan, and then potentially a championship game with Gonzaga. I'll say I don't think we'll see. The potential for 2 Gonzaga matchups is there. But I don't think we'll see 2 because that tournament just has a way of not giving you what you think you're going to get.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I think we got Duke Louisville one time in it 5 or 6 years ago. And other than that, that tournament has always given you an upset. Yes. Somewhere along the way there's been one. So just based on history, I don't think we're going to get 2 games with Gonzaga, but I do think we'll drop one somewhere in the Bahamas.
Double elimination tournament.
No, just the 8-team, 3-day.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to play 3 games kind of thing.
I got you.
But yeah, I think we'll drop one somewhere in the Bahamas. But another, like I said in a couple episodes ago, previewing the schedule, really challenging non-conference schedule. We're going to Spokane. We've got Ohio State in the Big Ten Challenge, playing UCLA again. So listen, we're going to be battle tested by the time we hit conference play. One thing. I think coming into the season, we were all really looking to see how Garrison Brooks would take that next step. He was always kind of the extra piece. Played defense and rebound in the past couple years. We're going to need more from him offensively. He's not going to be someone that you can throw the ball into and get a basket like you did with Bryce Johnson or Kennedy Mee or somebody like that. But so far, he's upped his scoring. He's given you 14 and 10.5 a game through the first 2 games. The only issue is playing him a lot. He played 39 minutes against Notre Dame, 33 against Wilmington. So first 2 games, some good things for North Carolina. Some question marks starting to emerge even this early in the season. But definitely, I think some things that we're going to be able to build on as we go forward.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Let's talk Gamecock basketball. I didn't know if you were going to say anything or not. You're kind of staring at me.
No, well, I didn't know. I didn't know my analysis of the first 2 North Carolina basketball games drove you to tears. Brings out the emotion.
I don't know. I keep yawning, and it's making my eyes water. Something about listening to you talk for that long it was hard on me.
Huh.
Well, I don't have a lot to contribute when it comes to North Carolina basketball. I did watch the Notre Dame.
Well, I was going to say that. No, I was saying,
we were playing at the same time, so I sort of flipped back and forth.
Yeah, that's happened a lot. Have you noticed that? Like, we played a handful of football games at the same time.
Yeah,
we played the same time the other night with the basketball game. Not cool, man.
No, I mean it's really nice being able to catch the games. That's another really great thing about college basketball is that I love weeknight games. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Get home on like a Wednesday night and you got something to watch. That's fun to me. But yeah, those games, especially the Notre Dame game, that was definitely a disappointing thing. And my $26 a month Sling bill does not let me watch things that showed up afterwards. We don't rewind on Sling.
Can't go backwards, man.
No. All right. So a pretty impressive start for South Carolina basketball, and you could say they haven't played anybody, but they've played one team that beat them last year. And we know for a team like South Carolina that's probably 1 or 2 wins here or there, the difference being between not making the tournament at all and being like an 8 or a 9 seed, right? I mean, these games are huge for them. And the Wyoming game yesterday in particular. The thing that stands out, first of all, TanMan, is just Frank Martin has these guys playing defense, and getting Justin Minaya back on defense has been huge. Wyoming basically couldn't score in this game. And I know that they don't have the talent that South Carolina has, but
again, they beat you last year.
They beat us. These same guys. Before we start talking about specific players or specific games, let me just say this because I'm afraid I'm not going to say it if I don't say it while I'm thinking about it. So Frank Martin has been at South Carolina for a while now, okay? And he's a program builder, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what he wants. And I feel like for whatever reason, whether it was injuries or whether it was him having, and we talked about this, having to constantly bring in JUCO guys, right, that padded the roster but couldn't stay but a year or two. With the exception of Chris Silva, he hasn't kept anybody all 4 years, right, and really established a stable of returning talent. And I think for the first time, it feels like Frank has the opportunity to do that with some of these guys, that this might be a preview of a South Carolina basketball team that's going to be better next year. than they are this year because there's actually some forward momentum and he's getting that time in. Because what we know about Frank Martin, and you talked about it on the show last week, I wasn't on it, about Silva, we know that Frank Martin can take marginal players and develop them. Chris Silva's playing on the Heat right now. And this kid showed up from East Africa and, he had talent his freshman year, but no discipline whatsoever. If Martin can keep some of these guys and actually mold something in Columbia, I mean, it's crazy because late last year we were literally talking about Frank Martin may be on his way out in South Carolina. And that is not the feeling I've got right now.
You talk about, you're right, I think he's got an opportunity with some of the guys on this team to keep some of these guys. If you go back and look at, go pull up, I did it today, I should have it in front of me now, but I'm a terrible podcast host. Go back and look at the classes that Frank Martin has brought in.
He's lost everybody.
I'm talking, all these classes are coming in like 11th in the SEC, 10th in the SEC, 12th. Like they're all in the bottom 3 or 4 of the conference. Other than P.J. Dozier the last 4 or 5 years, every one of these kids is
2-star, 3-star.
2-star, 3-star. They're all ranked in the hundreds. There's nobody above 100, I don't think.
The one guy he did get was a transfer that never got to play.
Yeah, some of that is, when you get kids when you get kids in that margin, like a lot of them end up transferring. Like I don't think that's an indictment on Frank. I think a lot of those kids, especially kids that are around college basketball, period, they transfer. I mean, it happens. It's what they do. With this group that he's got now, you look at the guys that are playing right now, playing big-time minutes, and other than Mike Kotsar, I don't know that there's an upperclassman anywhere. You got A.J. Lawson. A.J. Lawson, according to 247, he was something like 140th or something like that in the country. That kid explored the NBA draft waters last year. Came back, he should have, but the point is he was able to explore that. He was able to put himself in the
conversation. It
was in the conversation, right? So all these kids that he's playing right now that are playing for him, they're all young kids, man. The depth on this team, this is probably the deepest team that Frank Martin has had.
I don't think that's even arguable. Yeah, I think, definitely.
I remember watching one of his...
And you don't feel like there's a huge drop-off.
No, and he said that. I remember watching one of his press conferences before the season started, and he said, when he goes to practice, like he can't tell you which one of those kids is A.J. Lawson, right? Because they all are playing to that level. Like when he goes to the bench, there is no drop off. There is no fall off of talent. This is a good basketball. This has the chance to be a really good basketball team.
I think the couple of things. I mean, Frank was strangely optimistic coming out of camp, and I also noticed he had grown his hair back out, which to me is a good sign. He's got a little swagger. He didn't have that Marine Corps drill sergeant look to him anymore. Still acts like one. But
I think he's softening it up a little.
But he was willing to come out and say in a press conference, this is the most athletic team I've had. This is the hardest working group of guys in practice I've had. These guys make me proud during practice. For him to say that to the press, I thought was a big deal. Because, in years past, Frank said things like, we got a hard-working group of guys, but let's wait and see. Not a lot of experience. Let's just wait and see. Mm-hmm. There was none of that this year. And then the second thing is we know what he did. Okay, so you look at last year's team. We started off terribly, losing games to Wyoming, to Stony Brook, games you had to win if you were going to make the tournament. But this team got better. They developed. Right. He always develops his teams. We've talked about this, man. This team always overachieves in the SEC, right? Always. They're always better than everybody thinks they can be. How good can this team be? Well, if they continue to get better the way every team under Martin has done in Columbia.
I think last year the schedule was anytime you are taking a team to Wyoming, and I know why he did it, but that's a road trip that power conference teams do not make.
Right.
Okay, you don't make this year's schedule. I mentioned it a couple weeks ago. in the solo show, this non-conference schedule is good because that was the thing a few years ago with South Carolina. They rolled through the non-conference slate, right? I think they got up into the top, and when they hit conference play, and it kind of plateaued out, come tournament time, they're sitting on the bubble. There's nothing there. There's nothing on their resume to fall back on. Conversely, last year, they played this non-conference schedule. They don't play well. They get beat up. They take road trips to Wyoming, and by the time they hit SEC play, there was almost no, if they couldn't get in at whatever it was, 11-7, fourth in the conference. If they couldn't get in the tournament with that, then there was basically nothing they could do.
Right.
Once the calendar turned in January. Anyway, this schedule. Listen, man, Cleveland State, Boston, Gardner-Webb. You got a nice couple games there with Wichita State, maybe a matchup with West Virginia or Northern Iowa down in Mexico, and then you close out December with some tough games. Houston is a Sweet 16 from last year team. They lost some pieces. They're still really good, but that's a game that you could win. Clemson is not very good. You should win that, and then at Virginia. Listen, I said it. This is not a schedule that's going to beat them over the head until they are, a shell of themselves. I think the schedule sets up very nicely for South Carolina to hit SEC play, feeling really good about themselves, and then they open up Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky,
wow,
Auburn, at Texas A&M. But then you get a trip to Auburn. I think you can feel really good about yourself, and if you can get a couple of these wins early in conference play, then I think you're having a totally different discussion about South Carolina.
Right.
Now, that's a long way away.
It is.
A lot of ifs, but
the only conversation we can have right now is how they've looked after two games. And last year they were 1-1.
Well, look, I think through the first two games, I think they. I know that Frank Martin was not a fan of how they came out against Northern Alabama.
But I think some of that is the standard he's trying to hold them to.
Yeah, but some of that is they let Northern Alabama basically hang around with them for a half.
Yeah.
Not good.
Right.
Sunday, totally different story. They hold Wyoming, I think, to 16 points in each half.
That game was over in about 3 minutes.
Well, the announcer said after the game, South Carolina could have stopped scoring after halftime and still won the game.
Right.
So anytime, I don't care who you play, anytime you play a Division I team and you hold them to 32 points, that's a hell of a defensive effort, man.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I think, with the young guys, Martin has made the comment about how their offense is not where he would like it to be.
Right.
It's still.
I feel like there's a lot of guys on this team that can score now, and that has not always been the case.
It's still kind of, to use his words, kind of vanilla. But look, when you have a young basketball team, it's going to happen.
Sure,
that's going to happen. And again, that's scheduling. There are a lot of winnable games. There's a lot of places that you can find where they, if they bring their A game, where they can feel good about themselves when the clock hits zero. But the big thing is that when you said it, I think Frank Martin is really enjoying coaching these kids. I think this is a fun team. I think for years, when he first got there, he had to clean up the Darren Horn mess, right?
Yeah.
And then he had to convince.
Well, and the talent he did have transferred.
And then he had to convince guys like Sindarius Thornwell, which, listen, everybody loves him now, but that was not a lovey-dovey relationship right from the get-go.
No.
That took work. He had to kind of fight that for a little while. And then he leaves, and he's having to fight Chris Silva every day.
We talked about it to start the season last year. He benched him.
Yeah, exactly.
He benched him in the third game of the season.
He does some of that with Mike, but I think with Mike Coatsar, I think he looks at him and he's just like, well, whatever, man.
His comments about Coatsar in the offseason were that Mike needs to get out of his own head. That he clearly has the physical tools to be an absolute terror on the inside. The guy's he's not just huge. Look at him.
Well, listen, he's the all airport team. But when you get in there and you're 7 foot tall and you average 5 points and 3 rebounds, I don't want to hear it, man.
But
I don't go sit down. Go sit down.
No, I get you, man. But some of these, look, this Cousinard kid, man. He's as advertised. He comes off the bench. That whole team changes. I still think Alonzo Frank has a chance to be big time. This kid's 260 pounds. You talked last week about who's going to replace Chris Silva. Obviously, Frank's not going to replace him this year. But he can start down that road I talked already about how big I think Justin Minaya is coming back. I think it killed them not to have him last year.
And it seemed like that was the thing. Like, he was hurt, right? But it was constantly a thing. When's he coming back? He never did, but it was always, when's he going to come back?
Hopefully that will not be the case with Keyshawn Bryant this year. But another kid that has really caught my eye in some limited minutes coming off the bench is Trey Hannibal. When he gets on the court, man, the kids, he's just athletic. Mm-hmm. And again, I can't remember the last time I saw guys in Columbia coming off the bench that gave you pop. That's huge to me. One of my major concerns, same thing you mentioned with your Tar Heels, free throws. They haven't been great the whole time Frank Martin's been there. There are going to be games where South Carolina needs to win the game at the line.
I think of all the names that you just mentioned, I think you left one out. And I had no idea until I'm watching the game Sunday, and they mentioned it several times. The freshman from Massachusetts, Wildens Levesque.
Yeah, huge, 6'11", man.
Nerlens Noel's cousin.
Oh, okay.
Did not know that. But that kid, Martin has raved about him. It seemed like every time. He's one of those. He's
6'11", 230-pound.
He's one of those kids.
Operates at the center, basically.
When he comes in the ball game, for however minutes he's gotten so far per game, he's probably somewhere between 15 and 20, I'm guessing, off the bench. Whenever he gets in the game, he's one of those kids that just makes something happen. He's brought the energy so far. He's bouncing around.
Jalen McCrary is the same way. He's undisciplined as a mess, but you feel like if he can get that reined in.
Yeah.
They even said it on the broadcast the other day. I think Alex English said, look, I talked to Frank about McCrary, and he said, man, I can put up with some fouls and some stupidity because he brings energy.
Yep.
And he is disruptive as a defender. He causes problems on that offense.
That's the same thing with Levesque. I think he got a couple blocks Sunday. And he altered a couple more. Basically just guys going in and altering their own shots because he's in there.
And he's size. I mean, his wingspan is huge.
Watch out for that kid. That kid's going to be a problem in the SEC.
I love it
for the next few years.
I love
it. Listen, and here's a little sidebar to South Carolina fans. Sunday afternoon, the attendance for that game. There's nothing else going on at noon.
Yeah, and quit worrying about the football team.
Stop it, man. You've got a terrible football team. Your baseball team is just kind of There's nothing going on right now. Go to the freaking basketball games.
I agree.
Go to the games, man. The place is half empty. If you don't go to Northern Alabama on a Wednesday night, okay. Sunday at noon, you got nothing else going on, man. Get your butts to the freaking arena.
Agreed.
Goodness gracious. BG, the Charlotte Hornets, where are they sitting right now? 4-6.
They are the ninth team in the East. They dropped a really stupid game to the Pelicans the other night. While App State was beating the Gamecocks, I was watching it on my game tracker, and I'm like, are you kidding me? They were leading the whole game. Look.
A Zion-less Pelicans.
We know this team's not playing for anything. This team's not going to end up being a playoff team. They're not going to be the 8th seed. But they're trying to establish a culture. Games like that are games that you can win. Games that you can win are games that you really need to win. We talked about the over-under on this team being 20 wins. Games like that are really going to hurt you. You want to feel like you're establishing something with these guys. But overall, they've probably won a couple out on the West Coast. The fact that they were 3-3 coming back off of that trip last week, it blew my mind.
Usually the West Coast trips are a death knell whenever they take them. Came back from that trip 2-2, man. They went out there and went 2-2 out in California. That's a win. Look, there were some people there were some Hornets fans that didn't think that they would win much more than double-digit games.
Oh, right.
Already sitting at 4.
We talked about that there was a real possibility they would be the worst team in the NBA.
Yeah, I don't think
no
that's the case.
Look,
they still might not end up being very good, but they're not the total dumpster fire we were afraid they were going to be, right?
You tried to tell me. I'm going to apologize on this P.J. Washington pick. It turns out he looks like a pretty damn good player to me. But I have to ask you, at what point, what is this Devontae Graham-Rozier thing that's going on here? What are we doing? Because Rozier is providing no production whatsoever. Devontae Graham comes off the bench. He doesn't just look like the best point guard on the team. He looks like the best player on the team. He's not starting. he is getting significant minutes, but he's not getting starting minutes. I feel like a lot of the time, games that I've been able to catch, or even when I'm just watching the score on our tracker and looking at the stats, when he comes off the bench, they're down by 8, they're down by 10. When he sits back down, they're down by 2.
Well, listen, I think what you're going to see is what you've seen through the first 20 games. You know, they said there's an old adage in the NBA that you really start finding out who a team is after they've played about 20 games, right? So the Hornets are right there in the middle of that. They're 4-6. They played 10 games. And I think the point guard position with Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier going forward is going to be what it is right now. Right now, of the guys that are getting real rotation minutes for Borrego, Devontae Graham was the highest player efficiency rated player he's basically the best player that they have.
Cody Zeller's had some big nights. Dwayne Bacon had one big night.
Well, I got some.
Miles Bridges has had a big night, but Devontae Graham seems to have a big night every night. Look, that's the difference.
The difference is one of these guys is making $80 million, and one of them is making a G League salary. That's where we are. Terry Rozier is going to continue to start because
he has to.
He has to.
You're
He's
right.
paid to start. But Devontae Graham, listen, if that's your backup point guard, and even if he takes a step back from that,
and he probably will. It's a long season.
That's pretty good, man.
And you have to say, you look at the last 2 drafts for the Hornets, not bad.
No,
not bad. You tried to tell me.
Everybody wanted to kind of poo-poo on the P.J. Washington pick, and I think that is exactly what Charlotte needed out of their first-round pick, man. I said it when they drafted him. Listen, this was probably the best player that they had left on the board at 11 or 12 or wherever they drafted. Listen, they didn't need to hit it. At that point, you're probably not going to hit a home run. They just needed a guy to come in. They needed to hit a single.
I just wanted to see a little. Base, that was just how it was. I mean, because I thought the upside was higher. And
until this kid played game 1, and you're like, oh, yeah, there he is.
And I had seen him play at Kentucky. A lot of that hadn't translated into Hornets drafts in the past.
You're
but
right.
It does look like to me that that Kupchak and Borrego do know what they're doing. And, I mean, now I still think the Kemba Walker thing was handled pathetically.
Well, it was, but
it does not seem to have actually affected the basketball that much. Am I wrong? I know it's 10 games, man. It's 10 games.
I say this. They don't look any worse now than they did last year. I mean, they don't look any worse now than they did last year, and I would make the argument that they are more watchable now.
Oh yeah,
than they were last year, because last year
it was all on Kemba.
It was all on Kemba Walker, right? And they kept trying to force these pieces in, these older players, these vet players, because they kept pushing for this playoff spot, right? Now they're not doing that. Borrego has turned this thing over to the young kids. Kid Gilchrist has played in 1 game. Batum played in 1 game before he got hurt. Marvin Williams, his minutes are down to 17 a game. That's all. That's basically the end of a rotation guy. He has turned this thing over to the young kids.
Oh, yeah.
I, for one, am here for all of it, man.
Right.
I'm here for it.
Well, and we talked about it before the season started. I remember, in our NBA preview, I think I asked you, if you're a Hornets fan, right, what are you looking for this year? And you're like, you need to watch this season, 1 game at a time. Mm-hmm. Take it intentionally and just watch it. Look for progress. Look for progress that might turn in to a pretty good basketball team in a couple of years. As crazy as it sounds, let's not forget that the Hornets have had runs in the past 3 seasons of pretty high-level basketball. This franchise can do it. But if you're going to rebuild, this is what it needs to look like.
Hey, look, the main thing you need to do, you can say Charlotte's not a free agent destination. You can beat that until you're right. All right, you're right. But when a guy's out in the free agent market, he wants to go to a place where he's got help, where where the team has players around him to help. Now, they're not going to sign the Kyrie Irvings or the LeBron James or anything like that. But when you get to that next level of guy,
right,
they're looking for a team that they can come in and help push over the finish line. You play these young guys. You continue to let P.J. Washington and Miles Bridges develop. You see what you have with Terry Rozier, Devontae Graham at the point guard. I think maybe you put yourself in a position down the road to maybe sign one of these guys.
Sure.
Maybe, like I said, you're not going to be the premier free agent destination, but that doesn't mean that impact free agents won't come here. They're just not going to come here when they think you're going to win 10 games. Right. That's not going to happen. For as good as the Hornets have been through the first 10 games of the season, two guys that I am pretty much ready to just throw my hands up on. One of them is actually they both were guys that we had thought were going to take another step. One is Dwayne Bacon. Yeah. Listen, this guy has seen his playing time decrease as the year has progressed. And here's look at the numbers, BG. He's had a game of 22 and a game of 25. All right. I'm not a smart man. I'm not a math major, but that's 47 points, right?
I think I know who the other name's going to be.
Yeah. In the other 8 games,
do both names start with the same letter?
Yes.
Okay.
But with Dwayne Bacon, that's 47 points in 2 of the games. In the other 8 games, he has a combined 52 points.
Right.
6 points a game for Bacon. He is not getting it done. And the other one, who could it be? Malik Monk, BG. This guy has had 2 scoreless games. 2 games where he scored 0 points, the same amount of points as you and me.
In an offense where he plays in the position that's designed to score.
At this point, he's not starting.
Cody Zeller's making him look bad.
Well, listen, Malik Monk in college at Kentucky, listen, that kid could put the ball in the basket.
Sure.
All right. He torched North Carolina twice that year. Almost brought them back within the last minute of the game in that Elite 8 game with some unbelievable shots. That has not come anywhere close to, and for a guy in his 3rd year with a head coach who's now got you for a 2nd year, Malik Monk is going to find his way onto another basketball team next year because he is not getting it done.
And let's just be honest, the NBA is a lot of things. What it is not is a league where it's hard to score.
No. And
it's designed to score. In fact, I think the biggest problem in the NBA is that a lot of the points don't seem to count because there's so many of them. Back and forth momentum changes. But you're right, man. That's insane. I mean,
28%.
If he were averaging 12 points a game, I would call it a slight disappointment. But he's not even on the street with that.
I think he's in single digits.
Yeah, has to be.
Going forward for the Hornets, BG, like we said, they're 4-6 right now. They've got home games with Memphis and Detroit coming up. They've got the Knicks. They've got the Wizards.
Those winnable games.
They've got the Bulls. They've got a back-to-back with the Pistons on a Wednesday and a Friday. So they've got Detroit 3 times coming up in the next couple weeks before business picks up a little bit again. They've got a stretch here of 2 weeks where they can, with some good nights, they can stack some wins on top of one another. So, so far, like I said, we're about halfway through the grading period. Give me a grade for the Hornets. Give me a grade.
Based on what I thought they were going to be.
Listen, where they are right now. Give me a grade for the Hornets. Where they are right now, and for the next month or so, for the next few weeks, how you see that playing out. And are we still having like the same conversation about them a few weeks from now, or have they moved one direction or the other?
If I graded them in the league as an average, if I wasn't a Hornets fan and I'm just looking at the league as a total, I'd probably give them a C. But from my expectations of what I thought they were going to do versus what they've actually shown me, I'll give them a B-. Because they've got a lot of room for improvement. There's no question about it. Like I said, it's just that one game with the Pelicans. I mean, you have to win that game. You've got them at home. You're winning the entire game, and you let them beat you by 3 points in the last 18 seconds of the game. Those games are going to matter over the long term. But I think this team probably ends up being record-wise about as bad as we thought they would be. I think they're probably going to drop some real head scratchers.
They're gonna drop some that they shouldn't drop.
Right now, I would say though, I would probably move their win total up. I think they may win 25 to 30 games.
See, I think that's still low.
Okay.
I think around 20 to 25 is probably one of the 5 worst teams in the league. I think Charlotte's gonna knock on the door to around 30, 31, 32 or something like that. The thing that concerns me, I think I looked it up today, as far as point differential, there are only 3 teams in the league that are getting outscored by more than the Hornets.
And it's because, and even in the games where they're getting blown out, if you look at it quarter by quarter, they're having one bad quarter.
Yeah.
There's been at least 3 games that I've watched where they've come out of halftime
in
the third quarter and given up 40-plus points.
I know that third quarter, that second game of the year with Minnesota, where they just let Karl Anthony Towns do whatever he wanted to.
Right.
For that quarter was really bad. They've had a few other ones. What
you're supposed to do is get him on the ground and get him in a headlock. He'll tap out.
I can't believe they only got 2 games for that. I would give the Charlotte Hornets. Listen, I would give the Charlotte Hornets an A- because I thought there was a real possibility that hitting the beginning of this schedule that they could be here at 1 or 0 wins. Like I thought Chicago was going to be a little better, and then the fact that they went out to California, won 2 games, won 2 out of the 4, got an overtime win against Indiana, which is a perennial bridesmaid. They always seem to make the playoffs, but never really get serious about winning anything.
Were they beating the Lakers at halftime? Or were they down by like 2?
I think they were probably down. I don't know. They ended up losing by about 20 in that one. But listen, they didn't.
I'm just saying.
They went out there and had a respectable run.
Those things matter, though, to a young team.
I would give the Hornets an A- because I think that they have well exceeded as a whole. Dwayne Bacon and Malik Monk notwithstanding, I think Charlotte has exceeded my expectations exponentially.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I'm going to hold off a little bit on the praise, but we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
All right, that's it for episode 149. You can email the show. Let us know how you think the Charlotte Hornets have done so far this year, or the Tar Heels or the Gamecocks for that matter. And if you want to throw in a little Clemson basketball, God bless you. You need to pick up a new hobby.
You might ought to start your own podcast for that one.
Yeah, they're bad, man. They're awful. Email the show, CarolinaBorderWar@gmail.com. Like and follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Listen to whatever podcast host you like to listen to. It doesn't really matter. We are out of here. See you guys next week.
Oh, as soon as you said Dwayne Bacon, I got really hungry.